Today is the last day of the season preview, and there's two teams left. So best teams from both conferences, winner of their respective divisions, are presented today, one day before the NHL starts on Wednesday. And we start from the Eastern Conference, more detailed in MasterCard, the Central Division, and the winner is Tampa Bay Lightning based on our simulations. They won a Stanley Cup last season quite dominantly. They have been dominating a regular season few years now. So is this franchise that is generating dynasty and will win a few more Stanley Cups in a row?
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay has what it takes to be the dynasty of this century. They have the team that is capable of winning the Stanley Cup for a couple of times. They have a little bit of issues with the salary cap, as always, teams that have been contending for a couple of seasons. So, but they have also the key to fix those things. They've already sent a couple of players to the waivers, and in that way, they are able to climb under the salary cap. So they did really well in the bubble last season, but of course it was a little bit extraordinary situation. So they are still hungry to prove that it wasn't just a fluke, and they've been very good in regular season in the past couple of seasons, but then in the playoffs always somehow managed to fail until last season. So very well deserved Stanley Cup for sure for them. But there is more to come, I think, from this Tampa Bay team. How about our simulations? How have we been in line with Tampa Bay?
Tampa Bay, like you said, has been one of the best, maybe the best team during the last 3 seasons. Their win percentage at home, 68%, on the road, almost 66%. So that's those are numbers for elite team. But very interestingly, usually when you are betting, you won't bet for those big favorites, and you especially won't make any money by betting those big favorites. But Tampa Bay seems to be some kind of exception here, because almost 75% of those home games have had some positive expected value based on our simulations, and over 71% of those games have been correct. So by betting Tampa Bay at home with positive expected value during the last 3 seasons, you would end up having $1,138 in your pocket. Same applies on the road, because there's a bit less games with expected value, but as we can imagine, odds are a bit higher. Also, hit rate is a bit lower, but that doesn't make a big difference at the end, because the profit that you generate from those games when following our simulations and finding the value is $1,383 pure profit. So Tampa has been very good for our simulation, and we have been able to provide quite accurate numbers during the last seasons. They have, I think, overperformed even our predictions, and definitely Vegas odds game after game. And if we think some special cases, I think there are quite few of those, but back-to-back home games, the win percentage is only 50%. So it seems that they are performing very well when they come back from the road trip, but then when there's multiple games in a row, and I think there are a few of those cases this season, it would be good to check what kind of value the visitor have in Tampa if there is chances for upset. How do you see this new division? There's not too many teams that have been in same division in the past with Tampa. There's also half of the division coming from another conference. So is this easy cruising for the Lightning to win the division and maybe even the conference?
Yeah, at least according to the simulations, it should be quite a walk in the park for Tampa Bay. It's hard to see any of the divisional rivals to really compete with them. Of course, Dallas is a wild card here. If they manage to play like they did last season, then it was quite a tough playoff series they played, and of course now they get to meet quite many times. So it's an interesting pairing there. The other teams, of course, Carolina maybe, but otherwise Nashville and the likes. I don't see any issue with for Tampa to beat those teams. So I think this Central Division, what was MasterCard Central Division, is good for Tampa, and they can take advantage of not facing the tough teams in the East that they have previously had to face in the regular season. So maybe they can take it a little bit easier in the regular season, which they probably did last season as well. On the count that the season previously they dominated the regular season and then went on to lose to Columbus 4-0 in the first round of the playoffs. So they learned their lesson there. So maybe even now there is another lesson to be learned, and they should still win their division quite comfortably. But how about the actual facts? How do they say about the matchups with the Tampa Bay?
During the last 3 seasons, there are a few teams that have faced Tampa a bit more than others. Like you mentioned, Columbus is one of those, and they faced Columbus both last and previous season, the first round of playoffs. And I think those games have quite a bit impact here in the overall numbers, but Tampa has 68% win rate against Columbus. And similar number against Dallas, their counterpart in Stanley Cup Finals. And third team is Carolina that have similar 66% win rate by Tampa. But then these other teams, Chicago, Detroit, Florida, Tampa has been able to win almost all the games, so it's somewhere between 85 and 90% the win rate for them. Nashville is an interesting team. They played 6 times against Tampa, and Tampa has been able to win only 2 of those. So Nashville seems to have good chances and maybe can pull a bit surprise here, especially if they will match in first round of the playoffs. Because Nashville, like we discussed, is still a solid team with solid defense and usually have performed reasonably well, except last season in the playoffs. How about the roster? What kind of changes there has been since the Stanley Cup victory?
Yeah, not too many changes, so that's one of the reasons why Tampa is definitely a contender still. Of course, with the salary cap, they do need a little bit of tinkering, but they already sent Jack Bogosian away. Kucherov is now in injured reserve for the duration of the regular season, I think. So that eases it a little bit, even if it's of course a loss to lose a player like Nikita Kucherov, but they have such a deep offense that it shouldn't really hurt them, and this allows them to go under the salary cap. So there is a silver lining for sure. They might still make some moves. We'll see. Tyler Johnson is in waivers. Luke Shen was put up as well, so they might lose a couple of guys. But like I said, the team is so deep that it doesn't really hinder their chances. Every place has a player of elite level there. Like all the key positions are filled. In the goal, Andrei Vasilevsky, one of the best keepers in the league. In the defense, you have Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonagh, Mikhail Sergachev. So really good players all over. Maybe lacking a little bit in the prospects division there, but that's quite understandable after contending for so many seasons. So you're not expecting a lot of young guys push through. Of course, these players that Tampa has now are not aging. They're not old players yet. So there is a lot of good years ahead for them as long as they are able to solve these salary issues. In the offense, Braden Point took the steps to be the MVP last season. Of course, Victor Hedman did win it in the playoffs, but it was close call with Point. Steven Stamkos should be healthy now this season. He was missing most of the last season's run. Ondrej Palat, Alex Killorn, Anthony Cirelli, everyone able to score at least 50 points in a normal season. Now maybe a little bit less, but every single player also plays really good two-way games. So I think Tampa is the deepest team offensively in the league, and of course the defense is extremely good. So overall, I can't see any issues with this roster. Even with a couple of injuries, they are still way above most of the other teams, especially in their division. But how about our season simulations? How have we been in predicting Tampa Bay's success?
I think those have been quite accurate, actually, maybe even very accurate. Last season we predicted them to go under, a bit surprisingly maybe. The line was high, the highest by far of any teams, 108.5 points. And Tampa had 92 points out of 70 games, so I think it would be a very close call if it would be under or just over the 108.5, because they were not playing very well at the end of the regular season. Out of the last 10 games, they won only 3. And that is something that usually gives strength for rest of the season. But as it didn't happen, we never know. Then 2 years ago, our prediction was that Tampa will win Eastern Conference. It would go over Vegas line that was that time again highest of all the teams, 107.5 by 8.5 points. So we predicted them to get 116 points, and that was the big success for Tampa. They won conference easily, and they got 128 points. So we were on the right track by far, but then they even overperform our predictions. And then 3 years ago, we predicted them to go over 102.5 points, and they cruised 113 points, so very easily over. So we have been bullish for Tampa last seasons, and I think this time it looks from the simulations that Tampa is the team to beat in the East. But what kind of point totals bookmakers are giving this time to Tampa?
Yeah, the season is only 56 games this time around, so this is a little bit hard to compare to the previous ones. But the Vegas is setting the line to 74.5, which sounds a bit low, but in our simulations, Tampa gets 76 points, so it's pretty close to the line, a little bit over. And I would maybe go for that because, like we were discussing, the division is not that good, especially in the bottom. So Tampa has the history against those teams that they've been playing really well. So if they manage to beat all the lesser teams comfortably and then just fight enough to take the number 1 spot in their division, they are probably going to go over that line. Of course, in simulations, it's a narrow line of 1.5 points, but Tampa Bay is by far the best team in this division.
How about then odds for winning the division or Stanley Cup? I think Tampa is one of the favorites, but is there any value?
Yeah, Tampa is third overall ranked in the Stanley Cup odds. Their odds are plus 950. So it's there. If there is value, there is a couple of teams from the West actually that are above them. But to win the division, the odds are only plus 125. So that's also an indication that they are such massive favorites to win their division. There is not really any proper challenger for them. So probably not a lot of value there, but it's this sort of bet that is easy to tell people to do because, if Tampa is not winning their division, something's gone really wrong. And that can then be used as an excuse of why we did this.
Sounds like a plan, but I think the primary bet for Tampa would be points total over 74.5 points, and then we'll see if these others provide any value or not. But Tampa is the simulations pick from the Eastern Conference to go all the way to Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, I think with these extraordinary circumstances, it might be better to stave off from betting on these odds at the moment, but the total line is definitely interesting.
Very good. Let's see which team is the number one in our simulations.
Yeah.